Here's the thing. Sometimes the best way to fall back in love with photography is to go backwards a little bit. I've been shooting on a 16-year-old Canon G11 and it's been weirdly freeing. I feel no pressure when I'm shooting, I'm not searching for perfection, and honestly, it's just vibes. I think recently I've been feeling pretty burnt out with photography. I pick up a camera and feel like I'm shooting the exact same photo, just simply in a different location. Regardless of the camera I'm using, regardless of the lens I'm using, whatever the case, it all sort of just feels the same. I'm going out with the end goal of coming home with incredible images, and while I'm coming home, usually with some pretty good shots, I'm never feeling that creative spark until I recently picked up this little guy. As I mentioned before, this is the Canon G11 and it was released back in 2009. And I've been walking around with this little camera, carrying it around as my daily shooter for the last month or so. And I have been falling in love with photography again. I'm seeing a scene, I'm whipping out my camera, I'm taking a photo of it, and then I'm just moving on. Usually it's quite day-to-day life stuff, but believe it or not, when you're walking around shooting or when you're walking around just with a camera, you start to see different compositions come to life and things that you otherwise wouldn't have shot with a normal, regular camera. Even though this is a normal camera, what I mean is more like a upmarket professional camera, if you will. I found that a lot of the times when I'd go out to shoot, I would only be shooting if the conditions were perfect, if the lighting was right, if the subject was exactly where I needed them to be. And if it wasn't like that, I was moving on. I was done. It was like, next, I'm finished. I don't like this scene. And I know that this is not a great mental mindset to have around photography, but I've found over the last 7 to 8 years of shooting and being in the photography space that this happens. It ebbs and flows. And sometimes you're going to be going out every time and shooting and coming home with incredible images. You're pumped up to edit and share and so on. And other times it can feel like an absolute drag to pick up your camera and get out there in the first place. And usually what I've found is that you need a little bit of a jump start. You need to be in a new location. You need to be shooting a completely different style of photography, or in my case at the moment, and it never has been like this before, but it is right now, it's picking up this little guy. So let's quickly talk about the photos that this camera shoots, and I want to walk you through why I think it takes such nice photos, even though the photos aren't quote unquote amazing. Let's kick things off. It's got a 10 megapixel sensor, so even less megapixels than my Sony ZV-1. There is more or less not much cropping going on. Let's just say that. If you do start to crop in, your image starts to fall apart pretty quickly, so there isn't too much room for negotiation on the cropping side of town. However, you do get to sort of, I guess, compensate a little bit with the lens that comes out of the camera, because you can optically zoom in. You see that? Is it right there? You can optically zoom in, which is super nice. It goes from it says it's got a 6 to 30 millimeter lens, but in reality I think it's like 24 millimeters to 120 millimeters full frame equivalent, which is a really, really good range, especially considering how small this little guy is. It's also got a flash on the front of it built in, and I love this flash. I've been shooting more and more with the flash on than I have been shooting with the flash off, and I don't know what it is. I've never really deep dived into the world of flash photography whatsoever, and it's so interesting. I took this photo of this old guy having a little coffee with a mountain backdrop, and of course he was pretty dark in like the natural scene, and the mountain behind him was quite bright. Turn the flash on and all of a sudden I'm seeing the guy drinking the coffee and the mountain in the same frame before I've even put the images into Lightroom. I also love the nostalgic, warm feeling colors that I'm getting in these images as well. I'm shooting everything in JPEG and I'm baking on the shadow white balance. I don't exactly know the Kelvin of that, but I've just got the shadow white balance permanently put on this so I get a nice warmer feeling in my images. Of course, I'm then editing them in Lightroom, but my edits maybe take about 5 seconds per photo, which is insane. All I've got to do is import my photos, apply one of my Filmic Feel presets, and I'm done. And all of a sudden the images are feeling like they were shot on film, which is the exact idea and goal of shooting with a camera like this. And the exposure is always pretty much nailed as well, because I'm shooting with aperture priority on with a negative 0.3 exposure value, making sure my images are never too bright. So I pretty much never have to correct my highlights, my shadows, or my exposure in Lightroom. More and more as I progress down my photography path, I'm finding out that not every shot needs to be perfect. Not every shot needs to be compositionally 100% aligned. Sure, things look amazing when they are, but just being able to capture a moment can sometimes almost just be enough and arguably make the entire image when it's not perfect. And this old camera delivers me exactly that. Now, I just want to touch on the video specs of this camera really quickly because I found it really interesting. Obviously, this is not a video camera whatsoever. It couldn't shoot videos like this. It couldn't shoot my normal videos that I'd post on Instagram. You definitely can't shoot 4K. You can't shoot 1080p, and you can't even shoot 720p. You are stuck at 640p. So the video out of this camera is a little bit rough, but of course, like everything with this camera, that's what gives it its vibe. That's what gives it its character, and I've been loving it, especially when you zoom in on the video. It really feels early 2000s handy cam footage, and I really love the way that it looks. But if we could make it look like film, that would be incredible. And that's exactly what we're gonna do with the sponsor of today's video, Motion Array. So to make my footage look like it was shot on a Super 8 camera, what I'm gonna do is head over to Motion Array's website and make my way over to the Motion Graphics tab and then search for Super 8 Film Overlay. I'm looking for one with a load of grain to help me really sell that film look on my digital footage. And thankfully, Motion Array has plenty of these on their platform, along with another 2 million plus creative assets that I can download and use in my projects. I like this one here, so I'm gonna download it and then bring it over into Premiere Pro real quick, where all I've gotta do is drag it onto the timeline where my footage is, then change the blend mode and adjust it to make it fit just right. And now my footage has gone from this to this. Safe to say, pretty happy with the results. Using Motion Array's assets like this Super 8 Film Overlay can take your projects from looking normal and feeling a bit meh to really eye-catching and super memorable. So if you're looking to spice up your projects and take them to the next level, you can go ahead and check out Motion Array in the first link in the description. And if you use my link down there, you can save $50 off their annual plan, making this an even sweeter deal. A huge thanks to Motion Array for sponsoring today's video and for the continued support over the past few years. It truly means the world. Now, let's get back to the Canon G11. So if you're currently feeling a little bit burnt out with photography, here is why I would suggest trying to pick up something like this and going out to take photos with it. Now, I'm really not a fan of suggesting gear to solve issues, and I have a feeling that this might be one of the only times I would suggest doing it. But you don't need to spend a load of cash to do so. Here are a few ways that I would look at being able to reignite and spice up that photography flame if it's starting to die out just a little bit. I'd first go around your home and see if you have any old cameras lying around. It doesn't have to be a Canon G11, it could be something from Samsung or Sony or whatever the case, just an old point and shoot camera that you might have access to. Go and see if you can find one and then go from there. Take it out on a few shoots with you to start with, and then all of a sudden you'll probably realize that you really enjoy taking photos with it, and you'll start taking it pretty much everywhere you go, just like I do. But if you don't have an old point and shoot camera lying around and you don't particularly want to spend any money on photography gear at the moment, which is totally understandable, then what I would suggest doing is taking your smallest camera setup and your smallest lens and just locking in on that and going out and shooting something that you otherwise usually wouldn't. For example, if you look at my Instagram, my YouTube videos, whatever the case, I would never just walk around and shoot photos of my friends and my family and my day-to-day life and photos in a restaurant, for example. I just would never shoot it because in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, Zach, if you're not going to post it to Instagram and it's never going to see the light of day, what on earth is the point of shooting it? And that was arguably what got me in this bit of a hole or burnout phase with photography in the first place. So just taking your camera to places that you otherwise usually wouldn't can start to reignite a lot of that photography desire, if you will. So I challenge you to go out and take your smallest camera setup or your oldest camera that you can find and just go and try and shoot for 20 or 30 minutes on an afternoon somewhere, or go and take it to dinner with you the next time you go out with friends. Even though it might look weird, your friends are going to enjoy the photos, especially if your camera's got a flash on it that is going to come from it anyway, and it's going to feel like you're having dinner in 2005 or whatever. Either way, if you can just find something that's different from what you're usually shooting, go out and shoot it, maybe with a camera setup that you aren't used to shooting with. I promise you that this is one of the best ways to dig yourself out of the photography burnout hole and fall back in love with things. Anyway, guys, that wraps up today's video. Let me know what your techniques of getting out of photography burnout are in the comments down below. I'll be sure to check them out. Believe me, I can guarantee you, even though right now I'm getting out of that photography burnout phase, I'll be in there in a year, 2 years, 6 months, Who knows? Either way, thank you so much for watching. If you want to continue learning about photography, editing, color grading, video creation, you can go and check out this video right here that YouTube has suggested. I'll see you over there.